Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So this one is half Swedish on the home side, half German on the away side. Both of the breweries involved in this beer have featured on the channel before. I've had some really nice beers from the Swedish brewery, quite a few different styles, one of my local breweries of course, whereas the German brewery has only been on the channel 2 or 3 times. But the beers I had from them were very good, and they seem to be getting their name out there across Europe a little bit more these days, which is going to be interesting to watch over the next little while. But as you know, if you've watched the channel for any length of time, I'm a huge fan of my traditional German beers, and so I think this one could make for a very interesting review actually. So yeah, for the home side of things then, we are going to stick to my home county of Skåne here in the very south of Sweden. We're going to go a little bit to the northeast of me here in Lund to Eslöv, and we're having a look at another beer from Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri, or the Remmarlöv Farm Brewery, I guess we could say it in English. But this particular beer is called the Collaboration Maibock. It comes in at 7% ABV, and I guess you know what style this one is. But this is brewed in collaboration with Riegele Brauhaus, or Riegele Beer Manufaktur, I guess you could call them as well. I don't know exactly what what I should refer to this brewery as, because you see it as two different things. But yeah, these guys are from Augsburg, which is out to the west of München in Bayern in the south of Germany. So yeah, this one I think could be really interesting. I've had a Pilsner from those guys, and I forget what the other one was actually. I think it might have been a Helles, but both of those were very, very nice. So I'm curious to see what this collaboration has in store for us. But yeah, a Maibock is a lager beer, of course, which means bottom fermenting yeast, low temperature fermentation. You get quite a few different types of bock beers. You get the Heller Bock and the Maibock are there the same thing. You've got the regular bock beers and you've got the Doppelbocks, and I'll tell you a little bit about the history of that style a wee bit later on. But yeah, this is my third Swedish Maibock this season. So the other ones we've had, there was the one from Stigbergets in Gothenburg, Bierbibliotek also in Gothenburg. So I think this is my only Skånsk Maibock that I'm reviewing for you this year. So hopefully it's an interesting one, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. But yeah, let's crack on with this review then and see how we go. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the breweries before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery websites, the link to my other reviews that I've done, both from Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri and Riegele Brauhaus, or Riegele Beer Manufaktur, and we will no doubt add more to those lists at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you, and another one for all the German beers. This beer will appear in both of those lists because it is dual nationality. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about the breweries, and we'll kick off with Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri since these guys are the home brewery. So as I've mentioned to you already, Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri, or Remmarlöv Farm Brewery, are based on a farm in Eslöv, which is just a little bit to the northeast of Lund here in Skåne in the south of Sweden. But they've been brewing here since the autumn of 2014, and then in January of 2015 they started selling their beers through Systembolaget. But the owner and founder of this company is Håkan Nilsson, and together with his wife Michelle, he'd actually started his plan for a brewery a good few years before that, and it's located on his family's farm. And Håkan is the 5th generation of his family to farm the countryside here in Skåne. But the old barn was renovated and a brew house of 1,500 litres was installed, and they hired Hampus Olofsson as their brewer in August of 2014, and he'd previously worked for Malmö Brewing Company, who are a very good brewery that I would recommend you go and visit if you find yourself in Malmö. They're only a brew pub, of course. They don't actually sell their beers in bottles and cans and things, which is a terrible shame. But over the last few years, these guys have been gradually expanding their capacity. They've now got a 3,000 litre brew kit, and they invested in some new fermentation vessels in the spring of 2018, which apparently takes the capacity of the brewery up to a possible 800,000 litres of beer per year. But in 2019, they also opened up their summer pub, which was opening up every Wednesday, and they were planning further expansion over 2020, but of course the COVID-19 thing hit, and I think they've not managed to do that yet, but that no doubt will come back into play a little bit later in the future. From what I understand, the farm business wasn't doing too well through the whole COVID pandemic, but the brewery was what really kept the whole, the overall business going, so they must be doing pretty well with their sales and things like that at the moment. And I have noticed over the last wee while that they've been putting out quite a few different styles and things like that. They've started brewing some sour beers, which has been really interesting. I've got another one of those to review for you soon, and yeah, they are being a lot more prolific these days and getting different things out there, which is definitely pretty cool. But as of May 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 65 different kinds of beer, and you'll get some really nice things from them actually. So yeah, probably my favourite beers that I've had from these guys. There was the Swedish hops was always an interesting one, which they did with local Skånes hops, which was cool. The winter beers are always nice as well. The Red Slope and things are definitely worth trying, and they release quite a few different New England IPAs every so often as well, so you can keep an eye out for those too. But yeah, always cool to review my local breweries for you here on the channel, and this is one that you definitely should check out if you are interested in Skånsk craft beer. But yeah, that's all I can tell you about Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on to the German side of things then. Shift the brewery notes down. So yeah, Riegele Brauhaus, or Riegele Biermanufaktur, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Augsburg in Bavaria in the south of Germany, out to the west of Munich. But this company has existed in its current form since 1894, when Sebastian Riegele acquired the Zum Goldenen Ross Brauerei. But the brewery actually traces its roots back a lot further than that. It goes back to the year 1386, when it was first run by the Schmid family and their descendants for a good few hundred years. But the name changed at various different points owing to the marriages that happened. So this brewery has operated under the name Meyer, Geyer, Greyer, Hildbrandt, Müller, Bayern, Wiedemann, and also Degmeyer. But in 1717, Regina Degmeyer sold the brewery to the Heinzelmann family, who were from Leutkirch, and it stayed with them for 2 generations before passing to Sebastian Boyle in 1786. Who held the brewery for 4 generations until it was sold to the Riegele family in 1884. But in 1911, the brewery constructed the Riegele House in Königsplatz in the city, along with another building outside of the city where the best part of the manufacturing was to take place. But the Riegele House contains the original beer hall for the brewery, and it's now a protected monument for Augsburg city. But the brewery has passed down the Riegele family now for 6 generations, and it's run jointly by father and son, Dr. Sebastian Priller and Sebastian Priller Riegele. So yeah, it's a family business, as you often get with these German breweries, and it's always interesting. The Germans are very good at documenting things, and a lot of these older German breweries, they know exactly what the history of these things are. But as I say, these guys have been collaborating with quite a few well-known breweries across Europe in recent times. I had a beer, the very first beer I had from these guys, in fact, was a collaboration with Sierra Nevada from over in the States, and that was a really interesting one. And I've had 2 of their own beers. I think the last one was the Speziator, which was a Doppelbock, and was very nicely done. But as of May 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 60 different beers, and I do hope that at some point I can go to Augsburg and have a little look at the brewery and see what it's like. I would like to do a few more out and about videos in Germany, of course, and show you some of the different Brauhauses and things, because it's a really interesting part of European culture, of course. But yeah, as I say, that's all I can really tell you about the Riegele Brauhaus for the moment. If you want to learn a little bit more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that they've done, but they do have quite an extensive website that shows you all of these as well. But yeah, that's the end of the history section. I guess we can crack on then and have a little look at this beer itself. So, as I mentioned earlier, this beer was released as part of the Tillfällig temporary sortiment through Systembolaget here in Sweden, I believe, at the either at the very end of April or the very beginning of May 2021. But yeah, quite nicely presented. The artwork on this one is quite a wee bit different from what we've seen from Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri before. But you can see at the top of the bottle, that is the Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri symbol. They also have the chicken, which appears on a lot of their beers too. And then you always get this. Also, you get the made in Skåne, tillverkad I Skåne. But yeah, it looks quite nice. And there you can also see the horse for Riegele Brauhaus. But it says on the side here, it's got a wee bit of Swedish on the side. So it says, the Maibock's secret lies in the balance between the complex maltiness and the fresh lager character. This beer is a collaboration between Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri and Riegele Beer Manufacturer. So yeah, it says it was designed together with the Diploma of Braumeistership Frank Müller in Riegele, so, and also Uwe Liebfacher as well, who's got a lot of letters after his name, so I'm not sure exactly what those ones mean, but yeah, it looks pretty cool. 330ml bottle, this one. I think this beer cost me something like 35 Swedish kroner, so that would be, you know, about €3.50, and that would translate to roughly £3 sterling and maybe about $4.25 American, something like that, just to give you an idea of the price. But for a 7% Maibock, yeah, that's not too bad, to be honest with you. Maybe it was 30 crowns, I honestly can't remember. But yeah, still, I wanted a Maibock, so it doesn't really matter. Let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. So, the story of the Maibock beer, well, the story of the Bock beers generally. The Bock beers are from a town called Einbeck, which is, I believe it's in one of the Saxony states. I forget which one in Germany though, because there's two Saxony states. There's just Saxon and then there's Saxon-Anhalt, if I'm remembering the names correctly. But they had these beers. These, of course, are lager beers, bottom fermenting beers, low temperature fermentation, in other words. But they took their beers down to Munich back in the day, and the Münchners made fun of the Einbeckers' accent, because to them, when they said, oh, it's a Beck beer, Einbeck beer, it sounded to the Münchners that they were saying a Bock beer. And Bock, of course, in the Bavarian German, and I think German generally, means goat. So this is why you get many Bock beers with a goat as the symbol. And so yeah, it kind of came, the whole idea behind the Bock beers came about because the Münchners were making fun of the Einbeckers' accents. But yeah, before the head disappears on this one, you can see this beer has poured with about a third finger of a frothy, I would say kind of creamy coloured head there, and that's just kind of faded away to be a nice kind of thin foamy layer sitting on top of the beer there. But there's a good big thicker foamy ring just around the edge of the glass. But overall, it looks pretty nice, I have to say. But in terms of the colour of the beer, this one is kind of what you'd expect. I think it's maybe one of the lighter Maibocks that I've come across. So, you know, sometimes these beers can be, they're always amber, usually, but some of them can be a little bit richer in terms of the amber colour than this one. So there is a wee bit of a spectrum with these, but normally with a Maibock you would of course expect like a sort of mahogany ambery coloured beer, but yeah, this one is a little bit more yellowy, I would say, than what I've come across before. You can see it's absolutely crystal clear, so it's obviously been filtered, but yeah, one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the surface of the beer there, but overall it looks very, very nice. So yeah, in terms of the colour of your beer, as I say, a little bit lighter, and the colour of your beer is determined by 1, the type of malts that you use, and then 2, the length of your wort boil. Barrel aging and adjuncts, of course, are also going to play a role in that, but yeah, this one, of course, it's not going to play a role there, but I don't know what the wort boil, the length of the wort boil would be for this kind of beer. But the longer you boil the water, the more the sugars caramelise, thus you get a darker colour of beer. But as I say, it's dependent on the types of malt that you use in the first place. So yeah, probably this beer, it'll undergo, you know, a wort boil of between like 60 and 90 minutes. I would think, you know, fairly standard wort boil. But yeah, certainly looks the part of a Maibock, one of the lighter ones I've come across, as I said. But let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on with this one. That smells very, very nice. It smells, you know, extremely authentic and German, which seems a bit of a silly thing to say when there's a German brewery involved in this one. But it smells very, very nice actually. It's got everything you would want, absolutely. So straight away with this beer, you smell that lovely kind of smooth, light, bready backbone to it. It's a little bit like a bread crust. With the Maibock beers, you always get a little bit more of a kind of bread crusty note. But yeah, this is definitely this is German malty. There's no doubt in my mind about that. You can't get these aromas in these beers without them being German malted. But yeah, smooth. There's a bit of a white bready element in there. There's a little bit of a bread crust behind that, I would say. And then on top of that, you do get a wee tiny little bit of a sweet caramel or slightly honeyish type thing to it. And there's a lot of biscuit for me. There's a good little bit of a McVitie's digestive biscuity type element to this beer. But the Bock beer, remember, usually these are a little bit higher in alcohol than the regular Bocks. They're a little bit more hoppy normally as well. But yeah, these ones, it's all about the, as they were saying, the secret to these beers is in the balance. But I think this is, I think it is a really, really nice smelling beer, this one. So yeah, definitely just take a little bit of time to ponder over the aroma there. The malt, you know, the malty notes in these beers are not complex, but it's just such a satisfying aroma. For me, it's very nostalgic. I still miss being able to go to Kulturbrauerei and Vetters in Heidelberg, you know, just being able to walk for a wee bit and go to the brewery for a beer. I miss that. It's one of the things I loved about living in Germany, was you could just go to the Brauhauses and have a beer and chill, basically. Always used to love that part of the culture over there, or down there I should say now. But yeah, the aroma of these beers is just so nostalgic for me. Absolutely love it. But other than that, there's not too much to report on the malty side of this beer. There's maybe a slightly woody undertone to it, but yeah, a bit of white bread, a bit of a kind of bread crusty note to it, a wee bit of sweet caramel, maybe a little touch of honey, and you know, a bit of a biscuity note and a slightly woody undertone. That is your malty backbone to this beer. The hoppy side of things as well is what you would expect if you're familiar with German noble hops. So for me, little touch of earthiness to this one, but it's that typical smooth German earthiness. Nice little bit of a floral aromaticity. It's got a nice brightness to it, the floral quality actually, then a bit of a kind of lighter grassy note at the front of the nose. Not too zesty, just a nice little bit of brightness to it, if that makes sense. The fruity side of the beer is also what you'd expect. There's a wee bit of a kind of peary note to it. There's a little bit of a kind of appley thing. And you've maybe got one or two little hints of like an apricot or a slightly gooseberry type note to it, you know, to it as well. And you get some of those nice grassy kind of esters out of it, get out of it as well. So yeah, I think the aroma of this one is nice, and it comes across as extremely, extremely authentic. So yeah, it is quite interesting for sure. But the one thing we should also note is that with these Maibocks, one of the main other beers that you could compare this to would be the Märzen. So for me, the main difference between the Maibock and the Märzen would be that the Maibock is a little bit more kind of caramelly and oily, if that makes sense, and then the Märzen tends to be a little bit more kind of biscuity and things. So there's a little bit more biscuity and grainy for me. And you could of course compare both of these beers to the Czech amber lagers, the Letzaks basically, and you've also got the Vienna lager, but that's kind of different. That one's more kind of bready and smooth and things. So yeah, bit of food for thought there. There's lots of different lager beers, and I'm glad that lagers are getting a little bit more attention these days, because I think they've been underrated for or unappreciated, I should say, for quite a wee while. But yeah, this one smells as if it's going to be good. Let's get stuck into this one though and see how we get on. So this one is the Collaboration Maibock, brewed between Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri and Eslöv here in Skåne in the south of Sweden, in collaboration with Riegele, Brauhaus Riegele beer manufacturer in Augsburg, Bayern, down in Germany. Let's get stuck into this one. Slange, skål, cheers, Prost. Yeah, it's damn solid, that. It's damn solid. Just it's spot on. You can't really ask for much more than that. The way I always rate these lager beers is in terms of authenticity, and this one gives you everything that you want. It really does. Yeah, it's very nice. So thumbs up to both Remmarlöv and Riegele for this one. I think they've done a really good example of a Maibock. I mean, my only complaint about this is that it's a 330. This should be, a 440 can or a half-litre bottle. That's the one thing, is I always complain about this with lager beers. I don't like it when lagers are sold in 330s. They shouldn't be. They should be sold in slightly bigger volumes. But yeah, this one is very, very nicely done. Very authentic. But when there's two German brewers involved in this, it's going to be. So yeah, let's try and just break this down for you and describe it properly. So straight away across the middle of the palate there, you get that nice you get a little bit of that sort of smooth breadiness there. So it's a bit mixed. I do wonder if there's maybe a little bit of Swedish grain in this one, because I think Remmarlöv, they like to use some organic grains in this quite often. It doesn't have the organic mark on it, so I'm guessing that probably there will be some grains recommended by Riegele in this one as well. But you can taste a little bit of those organic grains that I know Remmarlöv do enjoy using. So you can feel that there's a white bready note to this one, but underneath that it starts to develop into a more sort of wholemealy, brown bready sort of thing the further you go into the aftertaste. So that blankets the middle of your tongue. If you go towards the front of that middle third of your tongue and the back of the middle third of your tongue, you'll get a wee bit of a more kind of bread crusty element to it, which I really like, and it kind of smoothens out a wee bit the further that you go into the aftertaste. And if you go to the front corners of your palate and move diagonally back, you'll find a very slight woody undertone to this beer as well, which I can like. But the bready layer in this beer, it is quite thin. It's not massively thick or anything like that, and that's how it should be. Lager beers are supposed to be kind of crisp and drinkable, and that's exactly what you get with this beer. But in the very centre of your palate, you get a nice little bit of a more oily, caramelly note to this one. As you move further out from that, the sort of concentrated brown sugar note, as you move out from that towards the edge, as you move from that out towards the edge of the palate, it gets a little bit more kind of biscuity in a sense. So yeah. So yeah, you do get a little bit more of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity vibe to this beer as you go out from that very centre, that dead centre of your palate. And the beer actually does remain quite sweet and biscuity, and you get a wee bit of the kind of bread crusty kind of thing lying underneath that the further you go into the aftertaste. It's a very straight shooting beer, this one, and it's one of these ones that doesn't do anything unusual for the style, but it's just really well executed, and you can't ask for much more than that, I have to say. But yeah, that's the middle third of your palate, and it gives you everything you would want. On the border region between middle third and back third of your palate, again you get a little bit of a bready build up out of the beer, a wee bit of a kind of grainy bread crusty thing. Then on the back third of your palate, it is, for me, the backbone of the beer is quite sort of wholemealy, and wholemeal brown bread and a bit grainy. in a sense. But then on top of that, you get some of the yeasty elements to the beer. You can feel the flavour is a little bit kind of more airy on that back third of your palate, but as you move further forward, it just gradually condenses down. And as you move into the middle third of your palate, it is quite condensed as well. So yeah, I like how I do like how that goes together in this beer. I like how it all pieces together. So the malty yeasty side of thing in this beer is very nice. You get a little bit of yeast on the back third of your palate, then you get the nice kind of sweet and crispy malts and the crisp malts in the middle third of your palate there. So yeah, I think that's the malty side of the beer described quite nicely. But yeah, let's move on to the hoppy side of things. But yeah, the hoppy side of the beer then, back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little touch of earthiness coming out of this one, and as you move further forward, it does develop a little bit of a herbal character in fairness, but then as you move progressively further forward, it gets a little bit more floral and aromatic, and I really like that about this beer too. Round the front curve of the tongue, it's got a little bit of a lighter grassy element to it, and there's a wee tiny touch of zestiness in there, but at the same time it maintains that kind of smoothness that you would expect of you know, Hallertau and Tettnanger hops. Hallertau's, of course, the Hallertau hops come from Bayern, whereas the Tettnanger ones come from Baden-Württemberg. So yeah, it's got that authentic German noble quality to it, which I certainly enjoy as well. Again, for me, that's nostalgia though. But yeah, solidly balanced in that sense. On the front third of your palate then, as I always say, this is where you get the fruity elements. Border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a little bit more of a bready build-up and a wee bit of a bread crusty thing in there. And then the backbone of that front third of your palate, again, there's a wee bit of a sort of brown bready. There is a wee bit of a more kind of brown bready, kind of wholemealy bread form in the base there, and then on top of that you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer from the hops. So let's look at that. So yeah, for me, the flavours you're getting in this one, there's a wee tiny touch of apricot underpinning it on the back half of that front third of your palate, but there's a good little bit of a peary note, and as you move further forward, you maybe get a little touch of sultana out of this one actually, and by sultanas I mean like dried white, green, red grapes. Raisins would be the dried purple grapes, so there is a wee element of that as you move further forward. Maybe a wee tiny hint of like gooseberry or something, and I get, you know, there's a wee bit of a slightly almost like spicy apple kind of quality as you reach the kind of front tip of the tongue. So yeah, apricot and a bit of pear on the back half of that front third of your tongue, then a wee bit of a kind of gooseberry, slight gooseberry and sultana, you know, as you move further forward. Then a wee bit of a slightly spicy apple. Then on the very front tip of the tongue, of course, you've got those kind of grassy esters coming out of the beer, which are very nice. But I like how this one, I like how it goes together. I think it works really nicely, and it's just a very authentic beer, and you can't ask for much more than that. But yeah, it's awesome, and you know, I wouldn't expect anything less from Riegele or Remmarlöv these days. So yeah, awesome stuff. It's authentic. That's what I would want from this beer. Straight shooting, but well crafted. Absolutely. So yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, to round off the review, this beer is definitely light bodied. It's probably at the top end of light bodied though. Yeah, so carbonation. It does have a wee bit of crispness to it, but overall I would describe this beer as being quite smooth, and there's a wee touch of an oily slickness to it, which again I think suits the style quite nicely. Definitely has a bit of that kind of clean Nordic quality to it though. I always say that about the Nordic beers, you get that nice clean, you can feel the sort of cleanliness of the water almost in these. But in terms of IBUs, I think it's fairly standard. I think it's about 20 IBUs. So not going to blow the head off you in terms of bitterness. The malt base has a lovely smoothness to it, and that's well balanced with a wee bit of sweetness. Then you've also got a slightly oily, fruity character to this one, which comes out really nicely. And the aftertaste of this beer is just really well balanced and kind of blends together really well. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this review. So yeah, this one was the Collaboration Maibock, brewed by Remmarlöv Gårdsbryggeri just outside of Eslöv here in Skåne in the south of Sweden, in collaboration with Riegele Brauhaus Riegele beer manufacturer from Augsburg in Bavaria, Bayern, down in the south of Germany. So yeah, let's leave it there. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are, both from Remmarlöv and from Riegele, and we will no doubt return to these breweries at some point fairly soon. Most likely Remmarlöv first, but I do hope to get a few more Riegele beers at some stage pretty soon too. But yeah, thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, check out both of these breweries, and I'll see you guys again soon. Sláinte, skål, cheers, and prost.